Okay, we'd like to look at today how the graphs of f of x and their corresponding f prime of x or their derivatives compare. So we'll start with the comparison of f of x to what f prime of x must be like. So we've got a goal here, given this graph of f of x, so our graph here is of f. We want to find an appropriate representation of what a graph of its corresponding derivative f prime of x might look like. So we have to think about some things that we've learned. So first of all, what does f of x and f prime of x mean? Well, here's f of x, and we don't even care what the rule for this function is. We're just looking at its appearance. Given its appearance, f prime we know means, one of its meanings we interpret to be the slope of the tangent to f at some input x. So horizontal axis is all of our inputs for x. As we inspect this graph f, we can look at all the values of x. So if I think about the slope of the tangent at all of these values of x, it's a very steep slope and it's a positive slope. Okay, so we're looking positive. Something interesting happens here at the top of this peak, what we call a relative maximum, in that it flattens out and I get a slope of 0 right here. So this is a very important input in terms of the graph of f, and that happens to be -2. So at -2 it flattens out, and then guess what happens on the other side of -2? The slope starts to go down, the tangent slope. So these are negative over here. And then another interesting point is at +2, because once again the negative slope flattens out again, and we have another 0 at 2. And then it picks back up with positive slopes. Okay, so let's document this, where we have f prime of x is positive, which means f prime of x is greater than 0. And that's happening on the interval from -∞, and it stays positive until it hits this -2. So f prime of x, we don't really know what it exactly looks like, but we know this much about it. Now then, f prime of x is negative or less than 0 after we hit that -2 input, and it continues to be negative until we hit this +2. And then once again it shifts over to f prime of x is positive, meaning greater than 0, after the 2. So from 2 to infinity, we continue on with positive slopes of the tangent. So just taking this information, I'm not going to draw an exact graph, but it just says an appropriate representation of what the graph might look like. So let me get my xy axis drawn here. And what do we know about f prime? Well, we know it's positive, meaning it's greater than 0 to -2. Well, f prime of x being greater than 0 means it's above the x-axis. Y is positive. So whatever's going on here, f prime is going to look like this. I'll be above the x-axis to the left of -2 on this interval. Between -2 and +2, I go dip below the x-axis because f prime itself is negative. So I don't really know much about where it goes here, but I do know that it picks back up after we hit +2, and then we're back into greater than 0. So this could be our possible f prime of x associated with this graph of f of x.